naenda kukaa na wazee in the evening. You come from work and you say, let me go sit. Wacha nikae na wazee. I'm learning one or two things. I was in business at the time, so you realize that during the day you work very hard, but in the evening you want to go and try and now have a discussion and try and see what you can learn. But I realized that for me, it was about the alcohol more than the conversation. I don't know if you've seen in our society, you find that there are different spaces where you find people sitting in a space and all they're doing is string mirror. That is the plan. The plan is not making the money. The plan is what you're about to do. That is the compulsion. You have to do that, right?
So we have these people who are addicted to gaming. We have the pornography.
Yes.
So are there any ways that they can stop this? Because I've seen a lot of people saying, more so the pornography section, like I'm addicted to watching this kind of things. And whenever I try to stop, there is a calling. They say the calling,
Yes.
telling them like, you must.
In certain spaces, like the 12-step programs for Alcoholics Anonymous or Narcotics Anonymous, they talk about a higher power. When you're answerable to God, it means that you know that there's somebody else who's watching over you. So it also helps to keep you in track. It also means that you're also following a path of laid out values. There's a value system.
I know of a pastor who used to, like, you go and open up.
Yes.
Then again, when he goes somewhere to do the preaching, now he used you as an example.
Okay.
I was preaching somewhere and this boy came to me, talked about this. So it's like there is that stigma. If I speak out, a lot of people are going to judge me. So how can someone who is suffering from this addiction can just open up without being blamed or judged? Welcome back to another episode of Resilient Voices, a podcast where we uplift the stories, struggles, and strength of caregivers. I am your host, Veronica. Today we are diving into a conversation that affect many, addiction. And to navigate this sensitive topic, I am joined here with Andrew. He's going to introduce himself and tell us more about him. Karibu sana, Andrew.
Thanks so much, Veronica. Thank you for having me. About me, who am I? I introduce myself as I am a sinner saved by grace. And the reason I say that is because I have also had my story with addiction. I was born in a Christian home, brought up properly and everything, but along the way, I ended up being very curious about stuff. My curiosity led me to start feeling like, I can enjoy a little bit. I can make money and still enjoy a little bit. The problem is then you make it a lifestyle, and I realized in Kenya it's a lifestyle. So I got into that space of having a drink every evening. One thing led to another. Before I knew it, I crashed and I burnt. So I am a Christian. I am a counselor. But my primary mission is giving people a second chance, because my life is a second chance. Yes.
I'm looking forward for a fruitful conversation. Yeah,
Thank you.
so I'm just going to read our context
Yes.
just to get a clearer picture of what we are going to talk about today. As I
Yes.
said, our today's topic affects many, whether silently or visibly, from substance use to behavioral habits that are hard to break. Addiction has a way of creeping in when people feel most vulnerable, lost, or unseen. And for caregivers, the risk is even greater, especially in the absence of family support, stable transitions, and mental health services. So, Andrew, do you resonate with our context?
Actually, I do, to a greater degree, to a very, very, very large extent, because having been in that space of relying on substances to help me cope in different spaces, and then going down and then coming out. I have actually been to rehab when I came out. And then my journey now is I work with people who have been in addiction and who are out of it. And the concept around caregivers and there are a lot of components of care living, of caregivers, that actually speak and attract addiction. One of which is a lot of caregivers have been in an institution.
Yeah.
There's a concept of dependence on somebody to take care of their needs from when they are from an early age. There is a concept of there's somebody else always overseeing them. And the thing about that is that when people leave such a space, they're left on their own. If they do not have the right tools, then they are prone to fall into maladaptive behaviors. Maladaptive behaviors being anything that you're going to do that is to help you cope, but that is contrary to what is right.
So let's start with your story. Can you tell us a bit about your journey through addiction?
Well, my journey through addiction, how can I put it? Like I mentioned, I was born a Christian. I was born in a Christian home, Christian family. But what happened is that at some point along the way, I thought I may find myself, let me chart a path. Because as far as I was concerned, it felt like it was very constricted. So you become curious and you start smoking and you start drinking, and then realize that I can work and still enjoy myself. So when I got into it, I did not get into an addictive behavior, knowing that I was getting into an addictive behavior, if I may put it that way.
Yeah.
So in my case, addiction crept in without me seeing it. Okay, I realized that there was this concept that used to be that naenda kukaa na wazee in the evening. You come from work and you say, let me go sit. Wacha nikae na wazee. I'm learning one or two things. I was in business at the time, so you realize that during the day you work very hard, but in the evening you want to go and try and now have a discussion and try and see what you can learn. But I realized that for me, it was about the alcohol more than the conversation. It very quickly degenerated into that. Yeah. And I did not see it coming. But what I realized later on is that I would use alcohol to cope with anything. I'm also an introvert, so I am not very good at speaking. I used to feel very nervous in front of people. But once you start drinking, you realize it's very easy to have a social conversation.
A lot of introverts do say that.
Yes, yes. So now I know, because from my professional background, that what substances do is that they lower your inhibitions. So your nervousness goes, things like that. So that is how I got into it. It got so extreme, I lost everything. And then finally, I got into it. Got so bad that when I hit rock bottom, I had to go into rehab. Okay, so went into rehab, came out. And when I came out, this is what is known as an exit plan when you leave rehab, that is supposed to help you reintegrate with society. That's when I got into counselling. That's when I discovered Andrew exists. And I discovered that there's such a person as Andrew. So that's how I got into this whole space. Then I had one chance. I was asked to speak to one individual. I never thought it possible. I was asked to speak to one individual about their addiction, who was in addiction. I spoke to them, and I realized that my heart is actually gratified when I do that. One of the key things is I gave my life to Christ when I hit rock bottom. I had been a Christian, but I went back to Christ and I rededicated my life. And what I realized is that it was always essential to have a spiritual awareness. Yes, it's not about me. As you do business, you realize you make money, you feel like you own the world, you feel like, and then the world tells you you're very good at what you do, and you believe in this. And once you believe it, it gets into your head. So the pride is what got me in the end. But I had to humble myself and go back to God and say sorry, and here I am. I give back now. This is what I do.
That is inspiring.
Yeah.
It's really inspiring. So there is hope.
Well, yeah. I mean, as you know, yes, there is hope. There is hope for everyone, but it's very important that the individual needs to want to get out.
Okay, so let's dig deep into our today's conversation.
Yes.
When we hear the word addiction, most people think of it as a bad habit or a choice, but sometimes it can mean something deeper. So can you just deeply explain for us what addiction really is?
In a nutshell, addiction is basically is engaging in a behavior or that has in a compulsive behavior, and I use the word compulsive deliberately, engaging in a compulsive behavior that has negative consequences. Even when you know it has negative consequences, you just keep engaging. So basically, anything that you do, you already know it may not be good for you, but then there is a compassion to it. Okay? Let me summarize this way. For addiction to exist, there are three main components that need to exist. One, there needs to be a compulsion. What do I mean by compulsion? I mean that there needs to be a need and a want to get whatever it is, to do that thing. In my case, I'd make the money, but the idea was always to go out in the end and to have a drink at the end of the day. If it's to smoke, you're going to make money, and you just know at some point you're going to smoke. I don't know if you've seen in our society, you find that there are different spaces where you find people sitting in a space, and all they're doing is string mirror. That is the plan. The plan is not making the money. The plan is what you're about to do. That is the compulsion. You have to do that, right? And you will do anything to get the money to do what you want to do. Okay, that is one thing. Then there needs to be an obsession. Whatever you're doing, you're obsessed with that item. Whatever you do, at the back of your mind, there's always that concept in your head that this is always there. This is always there. So at the end of the day, like in today's world, you would say, I'd be asking form.
Form iko jioni.
Form iko jioni. You know, that's the thing.
Tukutane bara.
Exactly. So you see, you've had it. And then you realize that form is the same form every day.
Yeah.
Form ni ile ile. The third thing is that there is the loss of control. Once you begin doing whatever it is, or you begin taking whatever you're taking, then there is a loss of control. You're not able to control it once you start. Okay, that's when addiction, now I can say, is actually existing. Right? So when I say anything, I mean behavior. Addiction can be a behavior. That means it can be sex, it can be work, it can be food, it can be gambling, it can be pornography, it can be, that is in terms of behavior, it can be any manner of behaviors. Okay? It could be high thrill activities. There are people who are addicted to speed and for the adrenaline rush. Okay? Once they do and they get into a space, it becomes dangerous. They know it can have negative consequences, but they still insist. Okay? Or substances. Mostly we've always known in our society about substances. Whether it's alcohol, or it's going to be weed, or it's going to be cocaine, heroin, ecstasy, masi, whatever you name it. Yes. I don't know if I've answered your question.
Yeah. So just tell me if this is an addiction. So I have this habit of whenever I receive any amount in my phone,
Yes.
I tend to use it, like on buying clothes or buying just something to eat, these sweet things.
Okay.
And it always happens. Like anytime I receive money, I always tend to use it. Even if I try, sometimes I get some amount, then I put it in my M-Shwari.
Yes.
Then I start craving like, anyway, dunia iko karibu kuisha, let me just use this money.
Yes.
Then again, I use it. Then after using it, I'm like, sasa nimenunua kitu yenye hata inisaidi. Sometimes I tend to buy a lot of clothes. Zingine hata naziangalia, then I'm like, hizi sasa nitavaa nikienda wapi? So is that an addiction?
I like your choice of words. You said you have this habit. So I'd like us to differentiate. There's addiction, there's habit, and then there's dependence. Okay? Now, a habit is basically something that you get accustomed to doing. You just get used to it. It becomes part of you. That's just basically a habit. Another example, shopping can be an addiction, but more often than not, it's a habit. Because when you don't have the money, do you feel the urge to go shopping? Then that is not an addiction. You see, you don't have the obsession for shopping. You don't have that compulsion that you must find money to go shopping.
No, I have that obsession. Like when I'm broke, I feel like there is something in me telling me I have to buy something.
Yes.
So I'll start calling people. You know what? I need this amount. Then when they send shopping.
Now, here's the thing. You said when you're broke. What about when you're okay? You see what I mean? There is when you're okay. Then this is where now I think it's very important for us to be very clear about it. Just because you engage in a behavior more often than not does not necessarily make it an addiction. Okay? It could be a habit and it could be a way of coping. That there is another underlying, like an anxiety, it helps you cope, it helps calm you down. So a lot of habits help us calm down. There's a habit a lot of people have and they don't even know. Putting salt in food, the moment the food lands on the table. Right? The food comes in, and before you ask the question of, before you taste to know whether the food has, the first thing you do is you take the salt and you put, okay? Or if it's tea, China later, and the first thing unafanya,
Sugar.
sugar. You fast food sugar. You don't even know whether the tea was made with sugar. You know what I mean? And for a lot of times, that is a habit, not an addiction. Because you need certain things to be to be available in order for the action to take place. You see, when they're not available, it will not take place.
Yeah.
You see what I mean? For an addiction, because of the compulsion that you must do this, what it does is it stops you from doing even other things that may be productive. It will stop me from going, say, farming if I need to. Okay? Because why? It is time for me to get that. And if I don't get it, then there are the signs of addiction that come in. I get irritable. Like for when I was smoking, if you see, when I've not smoked for a while, then I get irritable. I get angry very quickly. I start shaking for my alcohol. The shakes are prevalent; they're there with you all the time. So there is that as well. So there is a difference. So a habit is basically just an activity that you engage in over and over again. It can lead to, yes, it can lead to an addiction. A dependence is you're doing something, like now in that case, you do something to help you cope with something else. So you're dependent on a particular behavior or a particular action. All right. You can be dependent on a particular driver, say, if I may use that word, to take you to certain places. But it's not that he's the only person who can take you there. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
I can be that can actually be a dependent. Dependency can actually be a physical dependence. There are people who are dependent on tea, right? That they believe that they must have tea. It's just a thought process.
Yeah, for their brain
It's
to
for
function.
their brain to function. But then is it really true?
Mm.
You see? Because when they don't have the tea, they don't, right? Can be a physical dependence. You can actually have a psychological dependence on something. And like for some of these activities like tea or normal things, it can be psychological. It's just a belief that tells you that you need this in order for you to function properly.
So can we talk about the factors?
Yes.
Yeah, the factors that what are the factors that contribute to addiction?
I'd like to say factors that contribute not just to addiction, but even to use or to acting out. For behaviors, it's called acting out. So the factors that would contribute toward that would be lack of proper coping tools. Okay. A lot of people do that for fun, right? We think that I can take drugs or I can drink because there's a fun factor that comes with it. It makes me jovial, right? There's a drug called ecstasy that is called the happy drug. For a lot of people in the lower spaces, I have done a bit of outreach, and you realize that they take Masi because it makes them get to a certain place. If you look at them and they're happy, they can do what they want. Some of the other factors, as I said, to help you cope, loneliness, because like I said, substances lower your inhibitions. So then when you take substances, you're able to do them in a group a lot of times, and you bring it. There's a slogan by one company that used to say brings people together. It was actually true. It actually brought people together, unfortunately. Yeah. So other factors would be curiosity. In our society, some of the factors are lack of are poor role models. Poor role models, our celebrity culture, that actually we want to be like the Joneses. But then now going back internally, it's about the self. If a person does not know themselves, there's a saying that says, if you don't know yourself, others will tell you who you are. And because we do a lot of things as a culture, as a group, when you do a lot of things as a group, then you realize that then you as an individual are not able to exist on your own. Okay? Then that actually can be a trigger, can actually attract addiction on its own. Right? There's one more. And this has to do with the self. And I think it's very important. It's about an individual spirituality. A lot of times we get into addiction. Remember, I said there's a component of loss of control. We get into spaces of having maladaptive behaviors, thinking we can control them. Okay? And the thing about it is that you need to understand I'm not the end all. Like I said, pride for me was a big deal. Right? I was a bit arrogant, I was proud, and I thought I could handle what was in front of me. It's important for us to know ourselves. Very important to know your capacity. Yes.
Okay, that's interesting. And now, just to dig deep into these addictions, we have these people who are addicted to gaming, we have the pornography.
Yes.
So, are there any ways that they can stop this? Because I've seen a lot of people saying, more so the pornography section, like, I'm addicted to watching this kind of things. And whenever I try to stop, there is a calling. They say the calling,
Yes.
telling them, like, you must. So, are there anything they can do just to keep themselves away from this addiction?
There's that compulsion. The
Mhm.
calling is a compulsion. That's what I was saying about the compulsive behavior. You feel like you're being
Yeah.
called to it. Yes, there are ways. One, you can seek professional help. Okay. In our society, because a lot of times you realize that in our country, professional help might be expensive.
Yes.
Okay. And I was very jazzed and very interested in when I learned about KESCA, because the fact that you bring people together who are ready and who would like to tackle these issues is very important. It's important for these individuals to go to support, to have a support group. Support is very, very important. Okay. Um, One of the other things that I know works very well is a change of environment in terms of who do you hang out with. You realize that a lot of addictive behaviors are done in isolation. So it's to encourage the individuals to stick in spaces, especially among loved ones. I would not smoke in front. I would not smoke with my family, near my family, or drink near my family.
True.
You get? If you think about it, gaming is when people go and they're out as a group. But
Yeah.
if you meet the same individual with his mother or with his sister, they're a very different person. So it's encouraged them to now do more productive activities. That's one of the things. So I think also one of the things you could think about as KESCA is engaging the different people in other productive activities. That helps. But it's always very important to seek professional help, right? And also to push them towards spirituality. That helps. Yeah.
Spirituality it is.
Yeah. Well, the thing about spirituality, allow me to just say this, is because you're answerable to God. Yeah. In certain spaces like the 12-step programs for Alcoholic Anonymous or Narcotics Anonymous, they talk about a higher power. Or when you're answerable to God, it means that you know that there's somebody else who's watching over you. So it also helps to keep you in track. It also means that you're also following a path of laid out values. There's a value system. Yes.
Okay. So, talking about spirituality,
Yes.
a lot of people might, we have got people who want to share, these people who are suffering from addiction, who want to share their stories with this, talking about the spiritual leaders.
Yes.
Then again, I know of a pastor who used to, like, you go and open up.
Yes.
Then again, when he goes somewhere to do the preaching, now he used you as an example.
Okay.
I was preaching somewhere and this boy came to me, talked about this. So it's like there is that stigma. If I speak out, a lot of people are going to judge me. So how can someone who is suffering from this addiction can just open up without being blamed or judged?
That's a very, very good question. We don't have enough safe spaces, and I agree with you 100%. We don't have enough safe spaces. Personally, I know there's a thing known as church hurt. Church hurt is when you go at the church, it's where you think is a safe haven, becomes actually what shames you even more.
Yeah.
Now, in addiction, shame and guilt are a very big component of why people stay in addiction, the shame and the guilt, right? How can you do this? Is we need to create safe havens. The best way to create safe havens, there are self-help groups, there are support groups that help where people can speak out. So it's very important to know where to speak out. It's very important to have a safe space where confidentiality is essential. Because again, like I said, shame is a big deal, guilt is a big deal. You want somebody to speak in a place where they know that their confidentiality will be appreciated. But then also, and then in addition to that, we need to create more awareness around addiction. We need to create more awareness in different spaces. Yes.
So talking about the early signs, sometimes the signs are there, but we miss them until they worsen. So, what are the early signs that one must watch out to?
Well, and these signs are not a must. Let me be very clear from the beginning. The signs I'm about to talk about don't always mean that there is an addiction. Please let's understand that. Okay. However, a change in behavior. Somebody who was easygoing, who was comfortable around people, all of a sudden they start isolating. Okay. A need for money. A need for money that then makes sense. Okay. Andrew normally will do this, and he's that he's normally able to take care of himself. All of a sudden, he cannot take care of himself. It's the 5th of the month or it's the 8th of the month, and he started looking for money. It's the 10th, or there's a need for money at all times, and it's for reasons that don't make sense. Okay. Neglecting certain responsibilities. We see them, but then we justify them and say, pengine ni kuchoka amechoka. Somebody's tired, maybe he's exhausted, maybe this, that, the other. But these are just early signs that you may watch for. Loss of weight. Yeah. Sudden loss, drastic loss of weight. Okay. Drastic loss, drastic change in their physical well-being. Okay. These are things that you watch for, but they're not necessarily an indicator that there must be an addiction. Okay. However, more often than not, when you put them together, you realize that there's another one that is very key is denial. Denial or minimizing. Denial will come in many forms. You can minimize a story. It's not that serious. Yeah. Justify your behavior. You can justify a behavior. It's bad. Yeah. For instance, if somebody is going out and you go out and then you're late for the morning, but then you justify it, say, no, but I was with Kina Veronica. Yeah. No, there's no, see why at least we were together with them. That's why I delayed. Simple things like that. But one of the most keys, once you start neglecting what are your main responsibilities, then you need to get wary about it. Remember, addiction is a gradual malady. It's not, it doesn't hit you just at once. Yes.
Okay. You've spoken about all the sides, and I believe a lot of people, as you said, there is a statement you said. You said it is not a must.
Yes. The thing is, somebody can lose weight because you're anxious. Okay, you're anxious about an exam, you're anxious about a work situation, you're anxious about this, and it's taking so much of your time. You know what I mean? You can lose weight for different reasons. You can be sick.
So someone can undergo addiction without those signs.
You can actually get into addiction without those signs. That's the thing, because certain addictions like sex addiction or pornography, they're done in isolation. Okay, cigarettes, drinking, weed, marijuana, cocaine, heroin, these ones will have a physiological reaction to your body, right? So addiction normally is to say that it's a bio, psychosocial, spiritual condition. Bio is biological. It affects you biologically. So you look for that. Okay. Psycho, it affects your mental space. So you're no longer coherent, right? Social, family, your environment, you start change of your environment. Spiritual, you stop going to church and everything. You see, so all of them on their own can be an indicator of something else. But when you put them together, more often than not, then they would lean more toward an addiction of some sort.
So can family contribute to addiction?
Yes.
Kindly expand for us.
An addiction is basically what happens is that, remember that this is you're being pushed toward a behavior. Like you said, that calling for this behavior. If you live in a toxic environment, whether it's family, whether it's a workspace, whether it's a husband and wife, whether it's children, whether it's parents, if the environment is toxic, in your case, whether it's somebody who's in a care as a CCI, right?
Yeah, the CCI.
And an environment whereby other people are the ones who are calling the shots, and you feel that you do not belong there, what you will do is you'll tend to go out and look for where do you belong.
Yeah.
You see what I mean? And then the thing about most of these behaviors is that when you go out, the people you're sharing, you're acting out with, the people you're drinking with or you're smoking with are very welcoming. They're very, very welcoming.
So addiction recovery is such a long process. So how effective is counseling and therapy?
Very effective. But, and I say but, I have to put this, I have to throw this right there. The thing about it is that the individual is the primary contributor to recovery. Let me be very categorical. It is very important for the individual to want to change. If the individual does not want to change, counseling and therapy will not help. What it will do, what it does is it has a very small effect, because what it does is it will create the awareness that there's a place they can go to. But at the end of the day, the buck stops with the individual. Once the individual has said they want to change, counseling is very important. And therapy is very important, because then you're able to speak about whatever it is that has led to that addiction. Now, allow me to say this right now. Addiction cannot stand on its own. In our society, we talk about addiction, we talk about the alcohol, we talk about the sex, the pornography, the gaming. But I do not believe that they can stand on their own. There is an underlying factor beneath that has led somebody to go there so that you can be able to find a home in that space. There's something that has pushed you towards that. Okay? So the therapy and the counseling help you to try and work on whatever it is that led you to that, towards the addiction, so that it helps mitigate against relapse, you see, or against going back. It also helps you remember I mentioned that lack of proper coping mechanisms is one of the main reasons why people get into certain behaviors. So counseling and therapy help an individual appreciate that there are other coping mechanisms, other coping methods you can have. Okay? So yes, there is that.
So what about these people who do not want to change? Are there any ways they can be helped?
You see, you cannot help someone who does not want to help themselves. That's what I believe. You realize addiction is, in as much as addiction has been said, it's a family disease. Addiction affects everybody around the individual. All their loved ones are affected. The people closest to them, the environment is affected. Okay? But now in that space, it's very important for us to differentiate between who is the addict or the alcoholic, and who are the support, who is secondary. And it's very important for there to be family. In counseling, when they're talking with an addict, there's also the importance of family therapy. Okay? So that you're able to talk to other people to support the individual. And I use the word support deliberately, because there are two ways of support. There's negative support and there's positive support. Right? Negative support, where the family, the loved one, the environment enables the individual to behave in that manner, right?
Yeah.
And then that positive support is where you love on the individual, you provide the resources necessary to take the individual to rehab if you need to, or to recovery, or to therapy if you need to, okay? Where you have the church where somebody can go and pray and they can have a safe space for them. That is positive support.
And are there any government and community programs in addressing addiction?
Oh yes, Nakada is big on this, and Nakada is serious. The only thing about Nakada is that they don't have the manpower to run the entire country, to go around the entire country. But they've got a lot of very good programs that speak out to help out in terms of addiction. There are helplines which I can actually share with you after this. There are different helplines. I believe 1192 is one of the helplines. There are a few other helplines that come to mind. There are different organizations that have toll-free lines, okay, that individuals can go to for support and for help if need be, in a confidential space. And I work under the umbrella of the Kenya Association of Professional Counselors, and we actually have a toll-free line as well, whereby people can call in confidential in an anonymous manner and get help from counselors and psychologists as well.
So
Yes.
as we are winding up,
Yes.
some people say like addiction is hereditary. Is
Yes.
that true, or it's a misconception?
Please allow me not to answer that with yes or no.
Explain further.
Then I'll say it this way. Our environment contributes quite a bit, a lot to our behavior. Okay.
Mhm.
There are people who I have, and I've worked with different people, especially in certain environments, low income settlements, and places like that. I've worked with a few people who have left different forms of care, and I'm still working with some of them. And you realize that what the environment does is the environment can introduce you to certain things. Okay. Now, if you find there is a predisposition to doing something because your father did it, your brother is doing it, everybody is doing it, it has been passed down over generation. So I tend to not want to get into that hereditary space of it. My personal thought, no, you can actually be able to break it. It- yeah,
Okay. That
it's
is
personal.
that's fascinating.
Yes,
So, not forgetting this question, not on the addiction part. You've worked with young people,
yes,
in the CCIs and in the streets also.
yes,
So, I was told you help them acquire the IDs. I know we discussed about this on our
yes,
last episode, but I was told
yes.
to ask you this question actually. So, why is it important, and how do you go about it?
Remember, one of the things about addiction is that there's a shame and guilt that comes with it. Our society stigmatizes the individual to the point now, if you bring in the concept of stigma from the society outside, then myself as an individual, there's a shame and guilt that is within me, means that there's a barrier to us meeting. Now, when people get into different addictive behaviors, especially on the street or in low income settlements, or whether it's a CCI from after they've left care and everything, when they get into addiction, they neglect dealing with doing the things that they needed to do when they needed to do them. Okay. Now, I think about addiction is because remember there's the obsession and there's the obsession with whatever it is. Then there's a compulsion to get what you need. With the obsession to get what you need means that when you get high, you lose control. When you lose control, people steal from you. So a lot of them lose IDs. Others have been smoking or drinking from a very early age.
Yeah.
Now, to get an ID in Kenya means you need to go to the authorities. Okay. Especially if you're using and you believe that what you're using is illegal, whether it's bangi or masi or anything like that, you will not go near the authorities.
True.
So that is the biggest challenge on that.
Yeah.
Now, why is it important for them to get them? What it does is it actually gives the individual a sense of entitlement that they actually are an individual of their own right. Okay. That identity card alone, when I watch people's faces when they get the ID card, and it's like it gives them hope that now I can stand up and be counted as a Kenyan. I can stand up and be counted in society. That is one. The other thing is that what an ID does is an ID opens doors for them. Even if it's going to be a job, a simple job, even if they don't have the qualifications, even if it's a simple job like gardening or any of those things, or any other job like that, you realize that employers mistreat people without IDs. Okay, one. But then also, there are not many opportunities for them. So it's very important for them, first of all, to get that sense of I belong as a Kenyan, as an individual. Once they get that sense of self, then you're able now to work from that sense of self to show this self what can they become. So it actually also helps to elicit hope within the individual.
So, how do they get these IDs?
Well, it depends. Most of them, a lot of people in different spaces may not have birth certificates. They may
Yeah.
not have all this. From what we use or what I've seen different like national organizations use, they'll use whether it's going to be your school living certificate, whether it's going to be the parents' ID because there's a file in there, whether it's going to be the parents' identification documents, okay, to help the individual get an ID, or it's going to be the hospital they were born. Yeah, but in all this, then it's also very important for the chief to be involved in that space. Yeah.
I'm trying to put myself in a shoe of someone who has lived in the streets for all his life. Someone who doesn't have a background, who doesn't know where he or she belongs. So, how can we help this person to acquire an identity card?
You'd be very surprised that there are not many.
Uh-huh.
There are not many people who are on the street who don't have a background. You'd be very, very surprised. They
So they
actually
do.
have a place they came from. In order for you to get to this place, where did you come from? So what you do in that instance is you follow the individual and ask them, before here, where were you? Before here, I was here. It's very rare. It's very difficult for you to find. It's very hard for you to find an individual on the street who is not known by another person. It's a lot harder, yes, but then it can be done. You just keep following them up, right? But this is done with. That's why I mentioned that the chief is very important. It's very, very, yes.
Some chiefs are also the problem.
Of course, they are, but you realize that in every single space we are in, there's always going to be an exception to the rule. Mm-hmm. There are a lot of people in the government institutions who are actually very professional, who are really dedicated to their work, who are really dedicated to the other person getting the services that they are able to get. And I know quite a few of those, and those are the ones we work with. Mm-hmm. So even if there's one chief who may not be 100%, you'll find 10 others who know what needs to be done. Mm-hmm. Also, you realize that for them, it's very important that if this person gets off the street, it's a problem removed from them. So that's what you sell. Mm-hmm. Yeah, the benefits of them getting IDs. Everybody will jump on that, even if they're how corrupt. They will jump on that. I will help him get him off the street, because off the street means that there's less inclination to steal. The chief does not need to keep watching over their heads for that.
Yes. Thank you so much for your time. The conversation was really amazing, and I believe our caregivers out there will really learn a lot from this. Yes. So as we bring the conversation to a close, kindly tell our viewers something hopeful.
It's all about you, right? And for me, it's about you, and it's about your relationship with God, because your relationship with God speaks to you as an individual. Every single one of us, every single individual has it within them to be able to recover if they need help. And there are different spaces where you can reach out for help. I like what KESCA is doing. That's brilliant. And I will leave you some details. And you can reach out to the different spaces where you need help. But also the church. Remember the church. It's very important in this conversation.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Okay. So if you're watching this video, you can simply support us by subscribing to this YouTube channel and share this video to someone. You never know who it may help. And until then, stay curious, stay informed, and most importantly, stay resilient. Thank you for your time.